Welcome back to another episode of Addicted to Quitting, where we are focusing on quitting the habits that no longer serve us to elevate our health, our habits, and our happiness. My name is Gentry. I am your host for this podcast, and I am addicted to quitting things that no longer serve me. I started by quitting alcohol, and I continue to level up in my life by finding more things that are no longer relevant, no more the mindsets that aren't relevant, the things that aren't helping me anymore. And today, what I want to talk about is anxiety. My anxiety does nothing for me. And so I think it's really, really important. We talk about anxiety. We talk about the connection between anxiety and a substance abuse disorder. And we also talk about things that we can do to try and help in those situations and kind of help us get through our anxiety. Because I think far too often we are using anxiety as an excuse to not level up. Like we think that because we have anxiety or because we have these obstacles, it's somehow an excuse. It's somehow a free pass to not have to show up and be better. Like just because you have ADHD, just because you have depression, just because you have anger issues, just because you have a slew of things that are obstacles for you. Yes, they're obstacles. Yes, they're real. I'm not saying that they're not real, but that doesn't mean you don't have to show up. It doesn't mean that you get a free pass to skip out on life because you have anxiety. So I want to talk about that today. And I want to talk about the connection between anxiety specifically and alcohol use disorder, because I started my quitting journey with alcohol. I really started there. And then I continued to level up and change and pivot in my life and removed other things that weren't serving me. So a study from the journal Psychiatric Service found that 48% of substance abuse disorder individuals had significant anxiety and depression. So I want to talk about this because it's very, very common in the substance abuse disorder world for people to have the problem of anxiety, the issue of anxiety, the obstacle of anxiety, the opportunity of anxiety, because our obstacles are always opportunities for us to level up and be better. So I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about things that there's a fly in here, you guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this little fly going around. They just love me it's the time of the year that they're sneaking in, and they come down here. I have my lights and it's warm, and they just kind of swoo around me anyways. So if you hear me kind of like waving my hand over the mic, or if you see me doing karate chops, if I kill a fly by my hands in this episode, I think that would be like, it's just so gangster. So maybe it will land, and I'm not going to pause it, and I'm not going to edit it out. You guys are going to hear me live become a fly slayer. Anyways, anxiety. I wanted to talk about anxiety, and I wanted to talk about my experience with anxiety just in this past weekend. So I got sober May 1st of 2018. I have worked very hard on leveling up this fly, you guys. I've been working very hard on leveling up in my recovery and working on my mindsets and being very proactive, because I know if I'm not proactive, like anxiety and depression will really sneak up on me. Particularly what happens is I think that I have undiagnosed ADHD. The undiagnosed ADHD causes me to be really anxious when things like aren't a certain way or aren't how they, I'm not proactive in my routines. I'm not proactive in my structure. I'm not proactive in these things. That causes a lot of anxiety. My brain also just kind of like goes in a lot of different directions at times. And that anxiety then turns into depression, because then I don't get things done. I feel bad. And then I'm looking at the past. I'm beating myself up for things that I've done in my past. And even in sobriety, like things that I've done in my past aren't necessarily where I got drunk and drove my kids around, but like I forgot to update my co-parents on certain things, and I feel really bad about it. Or I forgot to put the picture form in my son's backpack, and I have a lot of guilt and shame about that I'm like, didn't do the things I'm supposed to do. I didn't do the things that are important. And this last weekend, actually what happened was not necessarily the anxiety of like the day to day, but I experienced some social anxiety. So I went on a trip. I went down to Dallas, Fort Worth to celebrate my friend and my mentor, Trent Shelton. And on this trip, I was alone for a lot of this 3-day event. And I had a lot of social anxiety. And actually 12% of adults have some level of social anxiety. So I think it's really important. Oh, this fly. Oh gosh. People listening to this on the podcast are probably like, okay, we don't care about the fly. Actually, probably even YouTube too. You're just like, see me like, wow, y'all, like karate chopping at this thing. It's gonna land. It's gonna land. I know it is. And they're slow right now. So I'm just gonna like, gotcha. Anyway, sorry. See, look at get distracted. All right. So 12% of adults have some level of social anxiety. So I'm talking about that 48%, which is why I really wanted to talk about this. I'm like, man, there's so many people that are struggling with alcohol use disorder or have some sort of addiction issue that are in that as a coping mechanism for their anxiety. Like 48% of people that have significant anxiety or anxiety and depression is huge. But I also feel like 12% of people having some level of social anxiety is also huge, because that's not just people in the alcohol use disorder category. That's people in general. Like, we have become a society that has gotten so comfortable with like being behind our screens. I mean, myself included. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Like, we're so comfortable of watching everybody else's lives from social media that we literally have forgotten how to communicate with people in public. Like, we've forgotten how to have normal conversations. We don't go out as much. We don't and part of that is just like, it's so much different now than it used to be, where both parents in the household need to be working for it to survive. There's so much more like expenses and pressure on everybody. There's a lot more obstacles for us to be able to have social lives than there used to be. But also with the new age social media, we can have full-on relationships with people without leaving the comfort of our own home. And this is something that I find myself in, which has also been so powerful for my recovery. So I don't knock social media, because social media is a tool, and it's gotten me connected with hundreds of people across the world, that are struggling with alcoholism, that are struggling with being a single mom, or struggling with divorce, or struggling with co-parenting, or struggling with blended families, which are our newest obstacle right now. And so there's so many people in this world that I got to connect with because of social media. And I'm from a really, really small town. So it can feel really lonely. Like, when I was trying to get sober, I felt so lonely. And we talked about that in episode 20 with my ex-husband's new wife, where she said, like, she wanted to get sober and she didn't like the way she felt when she drank, but she didn't see anyone around her getting sober except for me, which actually brought her to end up reaching out to me. So if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go and listen to that. It's one of my longest episodes. It's very, very long, but it's a very good conversation. But we are so used to being able to interact with people from the comfort of our own home that when we actually put ourselves out in other situations, it is more uncomfortable. And so 12% of adults having some level of social anxiety, that's how I was feeling this weekend. And a lot of what anxiety stems from is just a fear. It's a four-letter F word that we all have, and it contributes to that 12% of people that have some level of social anxiety. And that is that we are afraid. We are afraid of looking silly. We are afraid of not being liked. We are afraid of not being good enough. We are afraid of being wrong, like just being wrong in general, like asking the questions and it being a silly question or an annoying question. We're afraid of being annoying, right? I got told this weekend, because I kept apologizing for being annoying, and I was trying so hard to not be like in my head. But I was like, I'm sorry, I'm annoying with all these questions. And they're like, stop calling yourself annoying. Like, you're not annoying. And that was like a real wake-up call that they called me out on that. And I'm like appreciative that Brenda, shout out to Brenda. She called me out on that, and I appreciated that, because I do think that, like, my anxiety stems from a lot of fear. I'm afraid of being annoying. I'm afraid of being too much. I'm afraid of not having anything to offer. I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of change. I'm afraid of the future, like the future in general. Like, I think anxiety stems from a futuristic viewpoint. Like, we're fearful of what's going to happen. We're fearful of the change. We're fearful of rejection, all of these things, but it's always looking in the future at like what's going to happen. It's like this overwhelming sense of doom that we feel when we have anxiety. And for me, what happens with that is that I'm not in the present moment, and not being in the present moment it causes me to make decisions that are in this heightened sense of doom, a heightened sense of desperation, heightened sense of like almost like watching myself from the outside, like, oh my gosh, you look so stupid, oh my gosh, you said the wrong thing, oh my gosh, you're being too much. And so I look at myself like constantly assessing the things I said, and once I start doing that, what happens is I'm like past tripping. I'm focusing on the past. And that causes the depression. So for me, mine goes in this cycle. It goes from ADHD, which has never officially been diagnosed. This is a self-diagnosed world, you guys. I'm just like, I've done enough Google searches that I am strongly convinced that I have ADHD. I actually went to a doctor and tried to get diagnosed just for like the badge. Like I just wanted the stamp of approval that like, yes, you have ADHD. And I did counseling with her too. As the same, she was at my primary. We did counseling, and then we also did some of these other testings. And she was like, I think that you're just stressed. I'm like, but why am I so stressed? Like, it was very, very, I felt very, very unheard and seen, which maybe she's right. She's a doctor, right? But I kind of felt like she doesn't have the things she wasn't relating to what I was saying. And so it kind of got like swept under the rug. Anyways, I've only like really seriously tried to get diagnosed that one time, and then I just gave up. But side story, the self-diagnosed ADHD that I have, which, you know what, I'm real quick on that. I just think that we also we like the fact that I didn't get a doctor's sign off on that bothered me for a while, but I'm also like, hey, you know, I know my body better than anyone else. And I don't know how many times people have been like, something feels off. And doctors are like, no, you're actually good. And you're like, no, something feels off. Something doesn't feel right. And they go to a different doctor and a different doctor and a different doctor until somebody finds out that they actually have cancer, or that they have an autoimmune disease, or that they have something. So just because like a doctor or somebody, like, you know your body, you know your mind better than anyone else. And so you really have to trust that and be confident in that. Like, people are like, oh, I don't know if I have this or what's going on, but I feel like something's off. Trust that. You know yourself better, and you have to be willing to trust that and be confident in that. So the one doctor didn't give me an ADHD diagnosis, and it doesn't really matter. But I know that I fall in line with a lot of the things that they talk about in the ADHD reels, which is my new doctor diagnosis. So I struggle with staying focused. I struggle with being a little bit chaotic. I struggle with remembering things, remembering important things. I can remember how somebody held their pencil 5 years ago, and how it made me feel. And like I can remember the exact conversation that was had, but I can't remember where I put my keys. It's great. Anyway, so I have ADHD, self-diagnosed ADHD, and then it causes me to be anxious because I'm living in this like reactive state. For me, it starts with being proactive. I need to be super, super proactive. I have to have like things mapped out. I have to have my calendars. I have to be working out. I have to do the things that I know are going to help me. But if I go from my chaotic brain and I don't take care of that, I get into a really anxious state. And then in that anxiety, I start to have all these fears. And then from there, I start to have depression. So that's how my kind of cycle is. So it's really, really important for my recovery that I start in a proactive mindset about my ADHD and chaotic thinking. So like, I have to have systems in place. I have to be organized. I have to be all of these. I have to have my calendar. I have to work out regularly. Like, if I'm not proactive, I'm reactive, and reactivity causes anxiety, and anxiety causes depression. So what does that do to your body? So anxiety has actual physical effects on your body. And I could attest to this because there has been like before I started really being proactive and working on these things, I was having these types of physical complications all the time. And it was even like I would go to the doctor and be like, something's wrong with me. And I've actually talked to some doctors and psychiatrists that they say that so many of their clients that come in with these things that I'm about to list, actually what is happening is that it's their anxiety. So things like constant headaches, blood pressure being higher, muscle and body aches. So you're tense because you're anxious, you're worried, you're tense, and so that causes like these muscle aches and these body aches, digestion issues. So the digestion issues of, for one, not drinking enough water or not eating correctly are kind of like can link to the digestion issues, but also just like the influx of hormones that get pumped through your body when you're in that fight or flight. So when you are in fight or flight, it actually weakens your immune system because you are in this constant state of fight or flight. And those hormones getting pumped into you, they disrupt your digestive, they disrupt your gut, they disrupt your hormones, and then insomnia. So just not being able to shut your brain off, so not getting enough sleep then also causes the cycle to continue. So if I don't get enough sleep and I'm doing things with an already chaotic brain on 4 hours of sleep, I'm gonna just continue to add chaos. So it's like a never ending cycle. Is there anyone out there that relates to this? If you are listening to this and you're like, OMG, Gentry, OMGG, yes, this is me. This is absolutely me. I want you to take a screenshot of this episode and I want you to share it to your socials and I want you to link it to your socials because I'm about to talk about the solution that can help you with these things in just a second, which I've already kind of talked about for a minute, but I want to talk about the solution because this weekend nobody nobody was mean to me, nobody was like made me feel this way, nobody was said anything that caused me to be anxious or have social anxiety, but I felt like an outsider. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was saying things that were crazy. Felt like I was micromanaging my words. I felt like I wasn't being myself. And those were all things that I was creating based off the stories I was telling myself. So I want to help you guys work on these things, work on this anxiety because like the anxiety made me do it. Like it makes me do these crazy things. It makes me think these crazy things. It makes me cause these depressive episodes. And so I want to help you be more proactive. So things that have helped me in my journey of recovery and in my journey of trying to stay out of an anxiety filled brain and an anxiety and social anxiety energy is I have to be proactive. I have to be proactive. And proactivity means that we do it even when we don't need to do it. It means that we are ahead of the game even when things are going well, because that's where I fall into a trap a lot of the times is I get kind of ahead of it and I'm feeling really good and I'm feeling really confident and it's like, oh, I'm doing great. It's like not taking your medicine. Like, oh my gosh, this medicine is making me feel so much better. I should probably stop taking it now. I can do it on my own. No, the medicine is what's helping you helping you feel better. So keep taking the medicine. My medicine is moving my body. I have to move my body. It just my house is literally trashed and in a hot mess right now. And I cannot skip my workout today. Like just because my house is a mess, just because I feel like there's chaos everywhere, it's like, no, I have to move my body. Because when I move my body, it settles my mind. It calms my mind. It calms my nervous system. And if I can have a calmer mind and a calmer nervous system, I can actually handle the obstacles around me better than if I'm trying to do it before I take care of myself. So I have to be proactive in moving my body. I have to be proactive with drinking water, which I didn't realize how much not drinking water was until I went through a few spells of not drinking the water that I'm supposed to be drinking a day. But it really, like if I'm drinking water consistently, my anxiety is down, my brain fog is down, my like nervous system is more relaxed. I can't even tell you the science of it right now. Like I didn't even look up the science of it right now. I'm just telling you based off of my experience. If I drink water consistently, I feel 10 times better. It's insane, but I'm going to keep doing it because I could skip meals. I could overeat. I could eat healthy. I could not eat healthy. But if I drink water, for some reason, I feel better. And also, when I drink water, I tend to actually have a little bit better choices with my food as well. But if I'm drinking water, life is better. I can't tell you the magic of the science behind it. Maybe Sober Powered, if you guys follow Jill and her podcast Sober Powered, she's a scientist. Maybe we can ask her and she can do a podcast on why water is so important. But water is so important to me. And I also practice affirmations. I practice telling myself things. I practice talking myself up, which sounds really, really maybe like I don't like the word narcissistic, but we'll say it. And I think that that's part of the reason why people don't do it is like I feel like I'm boasting and I feel like I'm like an ego. And hey, guess what? If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. So believe in yourself. And I have to remind myself to believe in myself because we're also inundated with all this information that we need to be small and that we need to be pleasant and that we need to fit in, right? Like fitting in is one of the worst things that we can try and do because you weren't meant to fit in everywhere. Like I am who I am, and I have this mentality of let them love me or leave me. Letting them love me or leave me is God's plan. And let them is something that Mel Robbins says. And I really love that. And then also another quote from somebody else I love, Jamie Kern Lima. Oh, I always heard those two backwards, but Jamie, she says, rejection is God's protection. So if I'm showing up as myself, if I'm showing up as my best version, if I'm doing these things and I'm confident in who I am, and somebody rejects me in that energy, or an opportunity rejects me in that energy, or whatever happens that causes me to feel some sort of rejection, it's actually God's protection because that was not meant for me. That room was not meant for me. That opportunity was not meant for me. And once we get in that like belief and we're like, okay, you know what? Let them love me or let them leave me, but they're not going to change me. I am who I am. Another thing that I tell myself, which sounds so silly maybe to you guys, but I say, I am safe. I am safe. Just even saying that right now, like actually brings a little bit of like, I am safe. You know, going from being a kid to going to college and partying and doing God knows what, to becoming a mom, to becoming a divorced mom, like so much of my life, I have felt unsafe financially. I have felt unsafe, without a partner. I felt like there's a lot of pressure on me to provide, a lot of pressure on me to be everything that I need to be for the kids, a lot of pressure on myself to want to chase my dreams, a lot of things. So there's in that like constant pursuit of being enough for everybody. There is this feeling that that failure is like looming so much that it's going to destroy everything. I'm gonna fail my kids. I'm going to fail at my business. I'm going to fail at all these things. And that constant like pressure I put on myself makes me not feel safe. And I think that like there's this inner child in me that's just like, girl, we're safe. Like she's worried, she's worried about her, like my parents got divorced when I was young, and I'm like, I'm not going to be liked by my friends. Like I was kind of bullied a little bit in like the elementary school days, and I like middle school was kind of hard, and I didn't feel safe with my people. I didn't feel safe in my house. I didn't feel safe in these environments as a kid, and I've carried that into adulthood. And not because anybody made me unsafe. I think that like the anxiety was already starting back then that I'm talking about, since 48% of people that have substance abuse disorder in this study that I'm using today had significant anxiety and anxiety and depression. So I think that part of that's like the stories I was telling myself in those earlier years. But I had this heightened sense of I'm not safe and constantly searching for ways to find safety. I'm trying to search for a partner to feel safe in. I'm trying to search for a business to feel safe in. I'm trying to search for a career to be safe in. Oh my gosh, you guys, why did I pick being an accountant when I'm a table dancing, talking, crazy human being? Because it was safe. I wanted to feel safe. safe. I wanted a career that would feel safe. I knew accounting and a CPA license was going to be a good, stable career. But guess what? Even when I had that, I didn't feel safe because I wasn't in my authentic energy. So something I truly, honestly say to myself when I am struggling with anxiety, because so much of my anxiety is this like fear of not being safe, and fear of not being safe comes out as like not being liked. I won't be safe in this relationship if they don't like me. I won't be safe in this business if I'm not successful. I won't be safe in this room if they don't think I'm enough. I won't be safe in this opportunity if I fail. Like, the future's not safe. So if I turn around that and say like, I am safe, there's nothing to fear because I am safe. It does help me kind of come back to my true authentic energy. It does kind of help me come back to like, hey, show up as you are, be who you are. And at the end of the night, you're going to be safe. If they like you, if they don't like you, let them, because you're going to be safe no matter what. Like, you are home, your energy is home, and you are safe. Another thing that I do, another solution, is that I also really focus on staying in my lane and controlling my environment as much as I possibly can. I don't think it's bad to step outside of our comfort zones. I definitely think it's important to do, but as long as I am safe in my home and my energy, which means having a good organization, good structure, being focused on my productivity, focused on my goals, I do feel more at peace. I do feel more safe when I have a really good structure in place in my comfort zone, so that when I'm ready to step outside that comfort zone and into the growth zone and into the next levels and the best versions of myself, I at least have a really safe and stable and organized comfort zone. The comfort zone's not bad. The comfort zone is our safe place so that we can step out of that. And when I don't have a safe place in my comfort zone, it really makes it hard to feel safe to step outside of that. So I really work on my own goals. I really work on my own structures. I really work on my own productivity, and I'm proactive in all these areas of my life so that I can continue to show up and be better for everyone else around me. But if I am in a heightened state of anxiety, I'm not going to be able to do the things that I really want to do. I'm going to be future tripping and then past tripping, and I'm in this constant swing of anxiety and depression. So if I can be proactive and get organized, move my body, drink my water, and say, I am safe. At the end of the day, I am safe. Then I'm going to be able to accomplish a lot more in my life than if I allow myself to be reactive in an anxiety headspace. And so I don't want you to think that anxiety, having anxiety, being diagnosed with anxiety, not being diagnosed with anxiety, feeling anxiety, all these things are an excuse for you to stop. This is an opportunity for you to reevaluate yourself, to get proactive with yourself, and use it as like, okay, this is an obstacle I have. This weekend, I watched a man on stage that had been paralyzed from the waist down, and he's talking about how he works out consistently. He does all these things for his daughter. He shows up for this world. He shows up for social media. He goes out and speaks. I had somebody watched somebody with the paralyzed arm and how they lost their opportunity to play football. Like, all these things that had happened to them, and they didn't use it as an excuse to stop. So we're not saying that anxiety, depression, ADHD, stress, all these things aren't real, but they're not an excuse to not go forward. They're not an excuse to stop. Like, whether it's a physical issue or a mental issue, they're real. They're absolutely real obstacles. And you might be experiencing anxiety. You might be experiencing that depression. I believe you. I believe you 1,000%. But if you let that stop you from going to the party, from showing up for your kids, from like doing the things that you know you're capable of doing, but you're too scared to because of fear and because you don't want to feel unsafe, then you are letting that win. You are letting that win. So it's not an excuse. Anxiety is not an excuse. You're not the only one that has it. 48% of people with substance abuse disorder in this study from the Journal of Psychiatric Services found that 48%, almost half, are struggling with anxiety and depression. So you're going to sit at home all day long, say, I can't go to that party because I'm anxious. I have anxiety. 12% of all adults, not even substance abuse addiction or substance abuse disorder, 12% Are you 12 percenters going to say, I can't go because it's too hard for me? Because I know at the end of my life, I don't ever want my kids to say, Mom didn't do her best because it got too hard. Mom didn't show up because it got too hard. Mom didn't go to that event because it got too hard. Mom didn't get organized because it got too hard. Mom didn't learn how to handle her ADHD because it got too hard. Like, is that what you want your kids to remember you as? Like, she did her best, but it got too hard. She gave up. So I love you, but I need you to hear me. You're not the only one with anxiety. You're not special. I mean, you're special to me. You are so special to me. I appreciate you being here and you're still listening to this podcast, but you're not special. Everybody has something. And I get it. I get it. It's hard. It's overwhelming. It's exhausting. But you can get through it. And I gave you a couple tips on how to do that. So move your body, drink some water, get proactive, get organized, and remind yourself that you're safe. You are safe. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. I am doing a 30-day habit reset if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about how you can elevate your health, your habits, and your happiness. A lot about what we talked about here with a community of people that are also elevating their health, their habits, and happiness in the alcohol-free world. You can have, you could be sober curious. You could be somebody that's already removed alcohol. You could be somebody that never even drank. The only stipulation is that we are in this like wanting to not have alcohol in our lives, but then also we want to continue to level up. So if you're interested in that, I have that link below. But I appreciate you for being here. Keep quitting the things that are no longer serving you, and we got this. All right. Bye, my favorite quitters.